Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I am Lisa. I run the alumni office at school, and Mrs. Me is in a lesson at the moment. She will probably be joining us partway through this at least. But yeah, I wanted to thank Harry for his time this afternoon, and it's probably better if you introduce yourself, Harry.
Perfect. There we go. No one will know me better than me, so let's have a go. So, Harry Freeman, I joined Merchants in 2002 and left in 2013. So, went all the way through the prep school, seniors and sixth form. I did A levels, which are probably the most relevant, of economics, French, maths, and I dropped English lit at AS level. Off the back of that, so looking at economics and French, I decided I don't want to drop either of those. So I did both of those at university. I did economics with French at Cardiff University, which was really good. Loved the city, loved the university, and the course in particular meant that I got to spend a year in France. So I lived in the south of France for a year, down in Toulouse, which there's definitely worse places to live. So I was studying economics in French over there, but also trying to pick up everything else I could. So that was probably my highlight from uni. Whilst I was there, though, in my first year, the careers officer was sending out a few emails, and one caught my eye about internships in the summer holidays for my first year, and it was with HSBC. So I went and spoke to the careers officer, got an interview set up, followed the process, and was fortunate enough to get a place on the internship in the first year. It was an 8-week internship, focused on strategy within Marks and Spencer's Bank, actually in Chester. Off the back of that, they judge your performance, you're rated, and if your rating's at a level that they're happy with, they'll also offer you the next year's internship, so your second year. And I was lucky enough again to be offered that. I went through the process again, but this time I concentrated on commercial banking, which is what. So I did my internship in Manchester, working with small companies around Manchester to look at their financing needs. Again, somehow managed to meet their kind of performance ratings and what they expected. So in my second year of university, I was offered a graduate placement with them for when I finished uni. So I was sat there pretty smug for 2 years, whilst some of the people were scrambling around in the last year trying to get a job and some interviews. I was sat there with an offer ready to go when I finished uni. So that was a big positive. I then graduated uni, got the degree I needed to, so joined the scheme. It was a rotational scheme, so started off in Exeter, actually, of all places, down in Devon and Cornwall. Again, helping medium-sized businesses this time, anything from kind of a golf course to a hotel to a fish factory, anything and everything in between, but looking at how we could help them with financing and their business to see what else we could do as almost a partner. Moved on from there. I went to Birmingham, so doing my little tour of the UK. Spent some time in Birmingham, and I was working in the financial crime and compliance team. So investigating any accounts or any suspicious activity in accounts that we'd have to flag up to the relevant authorities. So your standard to be fraud, but also you're looking at anything where money moves that could be financing any kind of crime. So anything from illegal trafficking to drugs and everything in between. So that was really interesting. I did that placement there and moved into something completely new and a new part of the country again. So I moved to London and I've been here ever since. But my placement first was in the strategy and innovation team. So I'd already seen the kind of customer facing parts of it, also the crime and compliance part of it. And I went into the innovation team and we looked at creating an application on your phone for business customers. So it was pretty new. It was working with people a lot cleverer than me in data science and artificial intelligence. But spent all my time there building it up from kind of an idea into a bit of a prototype, and then eventually went to the CEO to try and get some funding for it, which we were fortunate enough to get. I moved out of that into my last placement, and this is something I'll pick up on. I do really think a kind of rotational scheme was ideal for me because you got to see so much of the bank. So my last placement was in global trade, so helping big household names with any of their trade financing, so imports, exports. And if you think of any kind of big supermarkets or Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, these are the kind of names I was working with there that are normally associated with investment bank, but also sit in the commercial bank when they need trade financing. So that was it. I finished that and took the job where I am today, which is in the sectors team. So we look to provide market-specific insight into the sectors that we cover and help with strategic conversations with CEOs and also help to build HSBC's brand. So we do anything to cover our sectors, and I personally cover professional services, which is legal firms, accountancy firms, consultancy, and also technology, all within the UK.
Okay, fantastic. Did you, when you were back at school and you were doing your A-levels and kind of looking forward, did you kind of have in mind that you'd like a career in finance, or was it something that just kind of came up because the internships came up? And
I think it was twofold. So when I was at school, actually, the one bit that I did know I wanted to do was live in France. So French was already kind of nailed on, and credit to some of the teachers for persisting with me. I resat my AS level in French. I probably wasn't the best, but I knew I wanted to live in France, so persisted with it and got there in the end. With regards to economics, I wanted to do something with my French, and felt like finance might be an area I could get involved in. So my parents both started their career in finance. It just kind of fell into place, if I'm being honest. The internship, if I wouldn't have checked my emails, that would have passed me by, and who knows where it would have been. But I was lucky enough to have only done one interview and one kind of, I don't know what you call them now, an assessment day, really, when I was 18, and that's pulled me all the way through to where I am today. So it has fallen into place somewhat, and I do kind of feel fortunate for that. But it is something I love doing as well.
And was there anything in particular that made you choose Cardiff? Was it the course? Was it the location? Was it all kinds of stuff?
It was a number of things. So my cousins lived in Cardiff. This is probably the most diplomatic way to say it. Cousins lived in Cardiff. So I knew it was a great city, but I did also know what it was kind of famous for, which was rugby, nightlife, and a generally fun city. So they were big influences. I played a lot of rugby whilst I was at school. I knew I wanted to still be involved in it when I went to university. But I didn't just pick purely on city. I picked based on, how good was it at my course and what were the specifics I could get from it. It was one of the only courses where the French and economics was run as two kind of completely separate courses. So my French class only had 4 people in it, and that was much better for me than sitting in a kind of theatre with 250 trying to pick up French. I definitely learned French better one-on-one or 4-on-1. So there were a few bits that came into it, but I think I'd be lying if I wasn't saying that I knew I wanted to be living in a city university for a start. I didn't want to be on a campus just for pure preference, and that the things that I really liked, the city could really offer, as well as a good degree.
I think that's fair and definitely reasonable basis to choose on.
Yeah, I think that also goes for Toulouse as well. That, again, famous for its rugby, very good university, very good university, but there is a bit of a theme running through some of the choices.
Oh, well, our earlier career session today was on rugby. In fact, it was Charlie Beckett.
Was it? Yeah, I used to play with Charlie. So
yeah.
I'll have to get him to get his Skype fixed.
Yeah, you will. You obviously did. So, whilst you say you've only done one assessment centre, obviously you did something right in that assessment centre. So,
yeah,
it might be useful just to give a flavour of what happens on those things. And I don't know if you know what you did right, but if you do know what you did right, then
I probably should have
They can
asked
be
someone what
quite
I did.
intimidating, can't they? Because they're quite. I've
Oh,
done a few in
master.
my life.
Yeah, so yeah, it was very intimidating. So when I found out I'd got through, so I'll go through the whole interview process as to how it got there. So there was a couple of different stages. Sent my CV off, met with someone who was kind of going around campuses to see if people would be interested. He advised sending my CV off, and someone might be in touch. You then have kind of an email saying we'd like a phone interview. So the phone interview is what the class is kind of competency based. So it's give me a time where you've demonstrated leadership, give me a time where you've demonstrated teamwork, give me pretty general things. They're not going to ask you, have a look at these accounts and tell me what you think of this business. Not at that stage anyway. So if you progress through there, they'll offer you a date at an assessment centre. So I think they vary from company to company, but the one that I experienced, you go in and your whole day's kind of set out for you. So there'll be 12 of you go in there, and you'll have each individual kind of applicant will have their own assessor sat around the room looking at them. So 12 candidates, 12 assessors in one room, quite a bit of pressure. So you just try and block it out. End of the day, you've already got to that stage that you're not going to do anything bad enough for them to kick you out of the room just yet. So you then start with the first task we had was a group task. So we were asked to go over a big stack of papers, bigger than any one person could read through in the time we were given, break it down into a team, and come back with a proposal as to how we'd change a branch and how we'd make it more efficient. So what they're looking for there is anyone who can kind of show a bit of leadership, say, look, if I take this, you take that, what about this? Someone to kind of, as simple as it is, just be on the clock, and also say, look, we need to stick to our timelines here. They're very, very tight on timeline. So as soon as that 30 minutes is up, ready for your presentation, they'll just and take everything away and you're presenting. So they'll look at that, and then they'll also look at kind of making sure there's not too many people shouting each other down. As much as I say there's leadership in there, a few horror stories from other groups where there's been arguments almost in there, and no one's really going to get a job if the first kind of image is showing is arguing with others.
No.
So after that, they did a individual assessment on your kind of financials and your written assessment. So got accounts for a business, gave you a kind of proposal as to how you'd treat that customer, what they were looking for, would you be able to do it? So they were looking for a business loan, from memory, I can't even remember, but say it was a shop, they were looking for a business loan to refit the shop, and off the back of the refit, they thought there'd be quite a lot of growth and therefore we'd get our money back. You get all the information, you get a lot of written text and all the accounts, go through it, and they wanted you to almost write not a credit paper as such, but your assessment of it. I think when we were doing economics, it was like a comment question. The last question on your paper where you give as much detail as you can. They collected those then in at the end of the day and they review them, but I think a lot of what they were looking there for is your written communication and your ability to kind of assess more specific information. The next one, we then had lunch, we got to speak with everyone, try and relax as much as you could, and then the next stage, we had the same scenario given to us, but it was a role play. So your assessor would into a separate room and would be the business owner of that business. They'd come in and speak to you about why they needed the loan. You'd have your paper in front of you as to your assessment you made, and they just basically interacting with customers and did you have the confidence to say what you needed to say and could you make the decisions when you did. And lastly, it was an interview, kind of like The Apprentice, save the interview right to the end and pick up your CV in front of you and make sure there's no fibs on there. So the last part was your interview, and then at the end of it, they leave you to go. Try and relax until you hear a call back as to yes or no, we'd like to offer you it. So they are daunting. I think the bits that I pulled out in interviews at the time, companies seem to look out for the core values is what they call them. So every company, if you typed in their name, they'd have their core values. And a lot of the questions will kind of relate to that. So at HSBC, they're open, dependable, and connected. So it wouldn't be surprising for them to say, can you show me a time where being connected's really helped you? So if you are going to get to that stage and you are going to be interested in certain companies, definitely do your research on the company and their values and what they stand for, because a lot of interviews will centre around that. I think other than that, they also commented that no one's really going to be coming to them with bundles of work experience in their early stages. That doesn't matter. Try and take as many examples as you can from school, from things you've done outside of it. Try and make them as varied as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's been given as advice for your career. Even when you've got work experience, try and use some things that make you a bit more personable, as opposed to a robot that can do the job and has the credentials. So they were the bits that really stood out for me. Try and fit with their values, and if you don't, it'll become apparent, but it's probably not the place you want to work if you don't fit with those values. Yeah. But really try and prepare for those.
And when once you got to working and you were on your placements moving around the country, did you get to choose what you wanted to do, or was it just a set kind of thing?
So the first one's very much set, because they don't know much about you. They try and make it as fair as possible. They're usually meant to put you near where you went to university or near where you lived. Exeter didn't really meet
not
either
with you
of those.
then.
No, I must have been the last pick. But so normally they would, but you don't really get a choice in your first one. That's given to you. They're all fairly standard. They're all client facing. They try and make them as equal as possible. Some people will be looking at large companies in Manchester. Some will be looking at small companies in Kent and anywhere and everywhere between. They then, for the rest of the placements, do let you choose your placements, but there's a list of about 60 that go out, and there's 40 graduates, and inevitably there's 3 or 4 placements that are really kind of the ones that everyone wants to go for. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. You don't interview. I know some places are different, but we don't interview. It's based on your current performance in your last one and what your graduate manager about you.
Okay.
So biggest advice on that is just staying close to your graduate manager.
Yeah.
I called on them twice, a bit cheeky really, to be fair. The first time I went for my internship, to give context, I shouldn't really have gone for it. You're only allowed to apply when you're in a 3-year degree, but with the kind of attitude of you don't ask, you don't get. Yeah. Board and said, I'd still really be keen, and that was what left me with 2 years of sitting on graduate. When I was on the scheme, I headed on a placement. You won't have to tell Charlie this. I decided I was going to go to Jersey, and decided again probably a month before we were moving that I actually really want to be in Jersey for a few reasons. And if I hadn't stayed close to the graduate manager, I wouldn't have been able to change. But right. Obviously, as they knew what was going on, knew what I wanted to do, and I spoke to them frequently, I was able to just pick up the phone with them, say, I'm going to be in London now, and something around innovation would be great. So, yeah, you do get to pick, but staying as close to your manager or whoever it is that's looking after your career at that point is crucial, because that's your first steps into the working world. So they do guide you quite a lot.
Yeah, those relationships are key. When you this is more of an interested question. When you have to move around, do they give you any help finding like places to live and all that kind of stuff?
So they do financially. They're 6-month placements, so it can be quite difficult to find places that are going to let you just rent for 6 months. They do give a lot of help, but at the same time, you sign up to it, and in the contract it says nationally mobile. So you're signing up for. They'll help with your move day. Almost, I think it's a few £100 to kind of get your stuff moved. But after that, it's down to you. So it does kind of test your kind of self-sufficiency and how happy you are with your own company. Move into cities where you don't know anyone to start with, and then kind of life there is hard. There's no getting around that, but quickly you kind of you're going to do it at university. You can do it in every other city. So it was actually, it's been one of the best things about being on. I've managed to live kind of here, there, and everywhere in the UK. And for Birmingham, I didn't have to do it by myself. There was actually all 40 graduates got put up in a hotel for 3 months, which was worrying. We were in the city centre. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. It was good fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. So now, I suppose, it's a question we ask a lot of people at the moment, because we have to split the question. So the question is, what is a normal day like, and is there one? But obviously, there's probably what's a normal day like, not in a coronavirus world, and what's the normal day like at the moment?
So I'll go with normal. It's quite nice to go back to normality for a bit. So I'll start with normality. So I think it's pretty cliched when people say it's varied, but I'm going to stick with the cliche. It is so varied in terms of what we do. So we cover the whole UK and we cover all of that sector for the bank. So I could try and give you an example of a day that might help. So it might start off with where we're looking to build our brand and build how well known we are in the market. So for me, that could be organising a meeting with 10 managing partners from legal firms, going into kind of what the trends are in that space, and then relaying that back to them, hearing what they've got to say about those trends, taking it on board, ready for the next time that we go out and speak to another customer. It's on pricing of legal contracts. Next time we go out to another customer, we've then got 10 more insights into that. So that's basically what we do. We take in information that people are telling us. We take in information that we can get from elsewhere. We go around and share that with clients and colleagues so that we can make the best decisions we can. I then might go and do some market research on a specific area. So after that, I might go and do some market research into strategy consultants in Bristol, see what's happening there, see kind of how we bank them, which we bank, which we'd like to bank, but also how the market looks like. And then try and get away for a little bite to eat somewhere in the city, and come back to maybe some internal reporting. So a lot of the time when you're starting off your careers, you'll go into a role which is an analyst or an associate. And as an analyst, the clue's in the name, but associates, not much different. A lot of the time you will be sat there kind of crunching the numbers and building up a kind of understanding and a base level knowledge that when you're ready to go out to clients and speak to them, you've got the fundamentals behind you. So it might be some Excel workarounds, management information a company's sent in, going through their accounts, checking, does everything fit? And then report that back to my kind of director or the sector head, ready for them to go out to the meeting. And then I might join the meeting. So a lot of it's client facing. So based off the work we've just done, go out and meet the client. So like I say, we were nationally mobile, which meant a lot of travel around the UK. It's kind of stopped, but you'd go out, meet the client, meet the kind of CEO or CFO, speak to them about what you can about their business, listen more than you speak so that they can actually explain what they do and you're not getting it wrong, and then just give them some insight as to what we've learned and maybe propose some funding if they were looking for an increase in kind of working capital, or they were looking to buy a new building or buy a new business, even some mergers and acquisitions. We might go out to them with initial acquisition targets. So they might be a mobile apps game company and they might be looking to buy up another 3 or 4. So we go out with some potential acquisition targets and just around that. So that is a typical day. I mean, that could vary. It could all get thrown in the air. At the moment, coronavirus obviously has changed everything. We're quite fortunate in finance that there's not been too much kind of furloughing and redundancies, but there has been a massive request from the kind of UK for more funding to get people through it. So from a business kind of view, businesses that are furloughing staff and haven't got people in there are then struggling to kind of make sales, are then struggling to get profit, and are struggling to kind of stay afloat in some kind of extreme situations. So we've seen a real uptick in the amount of customers that are coming to us for to keep them afloat, to try and see out this period, and then obviously look to pay us back after the time. A lot of the time is taken around that, analysing how much we're putting out in our individual sectors, but also the case on some more tricky requests where we need to work out, can we afford this even after? But yeah, that's a lot of the day is spent on that. Everything that the government announces is fantastic and great, but a lot of the funding is then administered through the banks. So as much as it's all backed by the government, a lot of the work to kind of administer it is falling on the banks. So busy times at the moment.
Yeah. And have you got any particular aspirations for the future? Any ideas where you might want to go back to France, maybe? Or
so I think that's probably one of my own aspirations, is whether it's France, Canada, USA, anywhere like that. I've definitely got a kind of desire to go back abroad and work abroad as studying abroad. I think where I work currently, I'm fortunate to work somewhere where I can, but that was a decision to work in a multinational where the opportunity to move to something completely new, but also move countries into a totally different area are vast. So I could go from working in Hong Kong in kind of the large corporate space, looking at the biggest companies in Hong Kong, to then moving into somewhere like Mexico and looking at financial crime, or France for your middle markets. We span that many countries, and there's that many different roles, even within the commercial bank, that you hear of a lot of people, which isn't very common today, hitting their 40-year mark, but then you look down their career and they've probably had about different careers within that 40 years in the same bank. So I'm quite fortunate that there's no real desire to move straight away, but I think my next steps, I'll be either a promotion in the UK, or maybe look for something international, which is really good fun. If anyone does get a chance to go abroad with the university or with their work, I'd highly recommend it. It was probably the best thing I did at university.
Fantastic. And looking back into your time at school, is there anything you kind of wish you'd done, or anything you wish you'd picked up, spent more time on, advice you'd give your younger self?
I think would be pretty happy to hear this. When I got to AS levels, I'd already in my head decided my A levels. So I just don't think I was fully committed to doing all my AS levels and see out all four to then give myself the best opportunity to which I wanted to pick going through to my A levels. As a result, I didn't do great in English that well in French, so it left me in a bit of a difficult situation where I'd already pinned my colours to the mast about where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And when my results didn't kind of show that, I was left in a pretty awkward conversation where I've got to try and fight my corner as to why I can carry on a certain subject as opposed to drop in the other one, which I had already decided I wasn't doing. So I think, trying a bit harder in my AS. I was pretty stubborn. I'd made my decision. It wasn't the best attitude. It didn't leave me in the best position. Other than that, I think university, I enjoyed economics. It's obviously left me where I am, but I think I preferred French. And hearing from some other people, it's just do what you genuinely do enjoy. French seemed like the lessons and lectures throughout the week went a lot quicker than economics a lot of the time. When you were kind of getting down, stuck in some of the numbers, it can be quite tiring. But I think maybe if I was looking back, I could potentially change degree into pure French. And the interesting bit about that is people who've joined the bank on my graduate scheme, there's an absolute plethora of what they've studied at university. There's Russian history, there's English literature, there's languages, there's maths, there's all sorts from all different universities as well. So I don't think it's as clear cut as anything kind of like medicine or kind of dentistry. You've got to do that. Finance has started to really open up and say, we can teach people this, but we can't teach them the kind of core skills that they've learned at university. So I'd maybe change degree into French, because that's what I enjoyed a bit more.
Fantastic. Well, it's a good time to just ask anyone, does anyone have any particular questions that Harry's not answered already? Feel free to just type them in the chat box, or just watch out if any come in. Any particular teachers you remember or feel indebted to?
Indebted to, I'd say all of the French department. All of them. Miss Peacock really helped me out in maths. Mr. Farrell in economics as well. He was really good. But Mr. Sleman and Mr. Mackay, got to be kind of near the top of the list. If not top, they were great with me through rugby and PE. So I did PE at GCSE, but they were really good to me.
Oh, we're just in the process of collating some stuff for Mr. Mackay on his retirement, so messages and things in from people.
I'll have to send you some. I'll keep them all ones they'll want to read. But there's some funny stories I can think back to with Mr. Mackay.
Yeah, we've had a few. We've had quite a few good ones already, often connected to tours, I think.
Well, yeah, so I did. I was lucky enough to get 2 tours away with him. Went to South America, so Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay, and then also Namibia and South Africa. So
amazing.
Yeah, he's had to put up with me in a few different continents. So it's a fair play to.
Well, I think he's planning to still be around a bit. So he's not disappearing. But and we're hoping that when things return to a bit more normal, we'll do more of a celebration for him, whether it's at next year's Crosby dinner or something like that, whenever we can.
Yeah, good. I'll make sure I'm there.
Yeah, no, that would be good. That would be great. And we had a call with a number of younger old boys the other night, chaired by John Farrell, with Mr. Mackay on, and Mrs. Lemon was due to be there but couldn't make it. So because a lot of people feel the same as you. So
yeah, I was sure that would have been a good laugh on that call.
Yes,
some funny stories.
Absolutely. I'm not seeing any specific questions coming in, so we'll probably say anyone wants to go, feel free. But if we just hang on for a couple of minutes, Harry, if anyone wants to stay on and ask,
I was going to say, yeah,
please do. So we'll just give it a minute or two. So have you got any notion of when you might be back in the office, or are you just...
Oh, it's not looking good. It looks like no one's got anything definite, but it looks like next year.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
It is a long one. I've got a monitor and everything. I've kind of committed to working from home for a bit longer, but everyone's pretty keen to go back.
Get back. I need to invest in a better chair if I have to stay home for much longer.
People have got to commit to it. I've got a question there. I think, how useful do you think it is living in London for networking? That's a really good question. It's a big question that all the new graduates always ask as well. On that bit where there's placement side of London, the ones that are given to you, people will throw the toys out the pram sometimes and kick off because they're not in London. It's not the end of the world in first placements or in your graduate scheme. It's not the end of the world at all. It's not the epicenter of kind of everything. For me, it's where our headquarters are. So if you want to kind of get yourself known to some of the more senior, it really. So that was when I said about the decision of going to Jersey or London. I was quite aware that I'd be rolling off my graduate scheme soon and wanted to make those connections so that rolling off was easier. Jersey, I would have found that a little bit more difficult, I think. just because the amount of senior leadership and amount of jobs that were going there. There's people who've got really successful jobs and really nice lives kind of in Manchester, Liverpool that I know of, and it's definitely not the centre, but I think in finance it's known as a bit of a hub. So if you're looking at jobs in finance, London's always going to be on, and it's a fun place to live, especially while you're younger. I think I've got every desire to move back north at some point, but whilst you're younger, coming out of university, it's a great place to live. And I think for networking, it depends on company by company, but for me, that you can't beat it. It's our global headquarters are here. We've got, I think, anywhere between 20 and 30,000 people in one building in Canary Wharf. So easy to meet someone for a coffee there. But I think it's a good question. It's important to think about, but opportunities as well.
And I think we did. I mean, your point about maybe wanting to move back at some point in future is a good one. We have so many alumni that end up in London. We do quite a lot of events down in London, and just hear it from everyone. Really, I think it seems to be standard advice that if you can, perhaps start out in London at least. Get yourself going. Experience it, do your networking, get a certain way along your career. It will then give you choices further down the line when you've got other life factors to think about, that you might want to be in a particular place or abroad or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. I think there's that part, and there's also the you should never speak about kind of wages, but a lot of companies will give you a high living in London. There's a London living allowance, and you get some people at the start of the career who just try and almost boost it as much as they can at the start by living in London, and then once they've hit a certain level that they're comfortable with, try and that into wherever they live. So you get it for a number of reasons, but it does seem like it's always at the start of your career that people will go and then make the decision on where to move after.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, it looks like that might be it for questions. It is strange talking. I mean, it's hard to imagine whenever we might be doing a, networking event in London again, or it's just.
Oh, I know. So I'm a member of the guild, so when it opens back up, I'll be around there as quick. I've been to a few in London. There are a lot of us in London, so it'll be good when it does open up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's the one thing that's very difficult to do virtually, isn't it? If you've got existing connections, it's fine to kind of keep those, but new ones is harder, I think. So
it's difficult.
Brilliant.
Well,
okay.
If there's no more questions, people are more than welcome. I think you'll have my contact. If there's anything specific you didn't want to ask on here, more than welcome to drop me an email or send it through however you want, and I'll get back to you as well.
Great. Well, so if you just let Mrs. Me or myself know if you want to be put in touch with Harry, and we will arrange that. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated. And I'd be doing my job if I didn't say stay in touch.
Exactly.